Hello, and we are back in Planet Coaster today, continuing work on our Roman kind of area for our theme park here. Today is one of the largest structures I have built that's kind of a single continuous piece, and it is the Amphitheater, and it will house our first flat ride for our park. Now, I put a flat ride in here for a couple of reasons. One, so people will actually go in and out of the structure, as I think that always looks nice. And two, you know, in my mind, I kind of pictured them taking down the flat ride to actually host shows, and then when the show's not going back on, they can put back up this little flat ride here and have people enjoy that. So it is a pretty quick structure, I would say, even though it is fairly large. And that's because I think I used the copy and paste function a lot more, I guess, efficiently compared to, say, the Bathhouse that we did last time. And so I did save a little bit of time by doing so. And you can see copying the seating and then moving it down to the lower section here. What I'm going to end up doing is making a section of seating, deleting the other sections of wall, and then just pasting that down here. As you can see, I'm removing these other sections because I realized what I need to do to get this thing built quickly. Because if I had to go in and place all these individual blocks, this would have been way too long. And so luckily this copy and paste function is here, and really, in my opinion, is probably one of the best things that they have in Planet Coaster right now. In, you know, the new translate tool and everything with Alpha 2, it's great. Everything is going great, and I like it. A lot of little detail. The interior is going to be very kind of white stone, you know, very clean looking. The exterior will have a little bit more stucco kind of shown in areas, as the arches that we have for doorways and things like that it's really hard to make them look solid stone. There I was testing maybe something for the top, but no one's going to be at the very top anyway, so I'm just going to leave it a plain flat roof. And then of course we're going to do a little bit on the outside. I should have actually finished the whole exterior before copying and pasting it, but you know, didn't think that far ahead, and so this is kind of how I dealt with things. It's going to be a pretty interesting shape, kind of a half U, very angular for the seating, and then the back section you can kind of see I actually made a road measurement outlined of where I want the buildings to follow. In fact, that path is still through there, so if I wanted to, I could direct people all the way around the interior of the structure, and maybe that'd be something cool to do if there was some other kind of rides, things to do that wasn't just a flat ride in here. But hey, we'll just call it this Amphitheater, kind of a scenery piece, and hope maybe they add some more functionality to it later. Here I noticed, obviously, the path and queue that I originally laid out is not going to work. And so I settle with just moving the entrance perfectly in line to the center there, and then cutting away the seating to make kind of an entryway. I like the way that looks. I'm also going to eventually do that for the exit out the side. And yeah, it's a very functional, I think, clean solution to get people to go through a building and into the ride area. Copy and pasting more seating around, and then we will be angling them and trying to round this off just enough to make it look nice and as clean as possible. Though there are some problems when you're doing a lot of these copy and paste kind of structures like this, these modular buildings, is that if you don't get the gaps completely identical on each side, you're going to run into problems later down in terms of making it perfectly symmetrical. And so it's really in your best interest to go through and make sure everything's lining up as close as possible on these things. The railings here didn't quite make sense, so I went back in and ended up fixing them, though the corners were a section that really kind of bugged me later on that I had to go in and fix for a second time. Now, I didn't want this perfectly round structure on the outside, and that's because we already kind of have an exterior round element somewhere in the park, and so I'm going to square off the ends, and these ends are going to end up being the main entry and exit. As much as I'd like to have the entry kind of in the center spot here, I realized that the queue line is just too short. Not everyone is really going to be able to I don't even think the max capacity of the ride gets filled with that short of a queue line, and so that's really bad design. And I ended up running the queue throughout part of the structure eventually, and I think that kind of fixed it here later on. And then also, we are building at the edge of the map, and so I'm very limited with room on the back side of the structure, which would be like the stage area and the back facade of the amphitheater. And so you're going to see how we deal with that. You essentially have to make a fake facade being held up, which I think turned out really well. And things like that I just like to do in theme park games because, in my opinion, it really sells the, I guess, the fake nature of these type of places. In fact, we're going to add kind of a side room here, maybe a storage room or something attached. Maybe they store some objects for plays in that, but it's also going to have these metal arms holding up the wall. Here, one of the back sections of the wall, you can see I'm doing this a little bit more smart, obviously, than the Bathhouse. Is I'm using a lot more copy and paste, trying my best to make these line up and fit together in terms. I almost want to compare it to maybe making a sprite sheet for, say, pixel art or something like landscape oriented, that you want to make a modular piece that when you put it side by side, it repeats in such a way that you're not going to have any weird overlap. It's going to be a nice kind of smooth transition and copy line, and no major gaps are going to show. And so that's what I think about when I'm putting these areas together to actually kind of, I guess, move them around and manipulate them later on. So this section here, this is actually not typically in an amphitheater, but I'm okay with adding this on here. And this is actually like a proper backstage. Sure, they could probably use the plaza section of the ride if they take that down as a lot of the main stage, but this backstage area I felt like would be more included into a theme park, and that's because they do want to keep kind of a Western mentality when making and performing a play, so that they can do maybe some modern takes on things. I mean, it's fine to maybe occasionally have the philosophers out there in the amphitheater grounds, but if you want a proper play, you're going to need a proper stage, in my opinion. And so that's why that whole section is there. And I like the way it kind of seals off the rest of the structure and everything. Probably another critique that we're probably going to get on this, and I wanted to do initially, and I did a lot of stuff off camera trying to make it work, is I wanted to sink this into the ground, because most amphitheaters were sunk into hillsides or things like that. A lot of earth kind of base seating, where they would just chisel out seats out of the earth and put stone down. Here, obviously, with the limited space being so close to that edge of the map, as you can see here, even the building turns a little wonky, is just not enough room, sadly. So I tried doing that, it just didn't work. So I hope you guys are okay with the solution I did. And plus, you guys were kind of clamoring for a Coliseum anyways, or a Circus Maximus, but just for room, a small amphitheater I think is a good middle ground to have for everyone. And hey, it's big enough to fit a ride in it, and so I'm happy. And when you ride that thing and get a nice view of the amphitheater, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to ride the thing around. Obviously, the backside is going to be very fake. These modern walls and support structures holding up these large fake pieces, which I continue to enjoy. And gonna try and put some greenery back there, but again, because we're so close to the map edge, it is quite a pain to do so. Saving often for types of things like this, because if my game crashes or anything like that, I want to make sure that we keep our progress, as doing these large kind of detailed builds is very time consuming. And if you guys are doing your own, I really recommend saving often. It's anything that's creative like this, saving is your best friend. So we're gonna have a pretty standard kind of facade over the stage. using some of these windows as last time. Now, the problem was I don't think I got the center of this perfectly symmetrical, and you'll see me moving things here later trying to fix that, as it was really off and it was going to bug me, and I'm sure it was going to bug everyone else. So I decided to just fix that as best as possible. Though we are left with a bunch of plaster space up there, I end up putting like 3 diamond looking shapes using some of the crown molding, but it's up in the air whether I like that or not. You know, it's an interesting thing to have, but I don't really know what purpose it holds beyond just having some type of effect. Tried also putting some other effects up there, but nothing really seemed right, so I decided to leave it kind of plain, I guess. Maybe that's a good thing, just so people can watch and enjoy the show and focus on that over watching and looking at the details on the building itself. So I'm fine with it. Had to move everything over, like I said, though. Some more pillars, and we're gonna be pretty much wrapping this up here soon, and we'll be cutting to, of course, the wonderful little panning shots, so you guys can kind of see how it all kind of finished and looks with some additional plants around the area. And then we have just a couple more things and we'll be done with our first plaza. That's been quite a treat to build for you guys. So we're, let's see, gonna finish up working, I guess, on this exit area. In hindsight, I probably should have put the entrance closer to the plaza, but you know, it's fine having everyone exit out this direction, I think. And then, of course, we're gonna use copy and paste a whole bunch here to try and fill in that space and get it all detailed out. But that'll be off camera. Okay, so it's a relatively simple structure, and not very many panning shots we can use with it. Though I do want to go over some of the stuff in real time, of course, so you guys can see everything moving and interacting. Here, of course, plenty of, shrubbery, trees, things like that, kind of surrounding the area. Made a little dirt path to the back, which may be all the kind of, I guess, the actors or engineers and stuff can come back in here and use this entryway. Some trash bins, of course, to try and, I guess, bring in some authenticity to the area. But we have a nice little tree line kind of separating that off from the entrance, so you don't really see it as you come in. You can see a little bit of a white structure, but I'm fine with that, because just having the occasional touch of this kind of, I guess, this play between the park and the utility side of things is pretty cool to see on ground level terms. So that's pretty nice. The front of the amphitheater, pretty basic, but these things tend to be very patterned and repetitive anyways. So I'm okay with it being simple and nice and clean like this, though there are a couple little flags on it just to give us some additional elements. The main queue line starts here. We have some stuff that are doored and kind of blocked off. Maybe this would be, if there was a play going on, they would let people go this way to get to an upper section. And then through the queue line, potentially, I threw up some posters here, as maybe there would be some advertising for some shows that would go on later. Of course, I don't know why there would be a pirate show in the Roman area, but hey, that's pretty much all we have. And then you are greeted with the flat ride here as it goes around, and here is the main view from kind of the stage. We can go back here. The stage is pretty plain and simple, as it would be. And we just have a couple exits to the left and right there. And yeah, it turned out really well, I think. I did mix in some wooden roofing just to break up some of the tiles. And the seating, I think we got the scale relatively correct. You can see from up here how messy things become when you start doing slopes. But I think if this wasn't here, you would have a wonderful view of the stage pretty much everywhere you sat. So I think that's a success on building the amphitheater, I believe. Of course, we have some additional back rooms over here. I really like this back section with a lot of the metal work kind of really holding up the heaviness of the fake facade there. Air conditioning units, some skylights, of course. Perhaps a little break balcony. I kind of wish there was a little bit more modern decorations, like some modern chairs and seats that you could throw down. I kind of can't wait for stuff like that. That'd be pretty nice. Colored the exit and entryway kind of this red color. Another doorway, potentially to an upper section that they would open up for shows. And it looks really well, you know, if you zoom out all the way, it has a really nice commanding presence of that bottom corner there. And I think it turned out really nice. So we have a couple little things left to do in this plaza. One, we're going to make a nice restaurant in this corner. And then in this little field here, I'm going to end up doing some fake facades of some more Roman homes just to try and fill in this segment. Maybe even put some seating in this area as well. Would be pretty nice, just so we can have a nice filled in area. I want to try and fill in as much as possible. As we work out this way to the new theme, eventually this stuff will get filled in. Of course, that roller coaster and this roller coaster over here needs to be done. So, hey, at least we have our first ride, and I think that's going to do us for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe for more creative goodness. Go ahead and hit that like button so I know you guys are enjoying this kind of stuff. Go ahead and leave a comment down below on what you guys think, and I'll see you all next time in some Planet Coaster.